Why would you? Why would anyone with a brain buy these cards? No offense to anyone that's bought them, but I think you're making a mistake in life. Welcome back to the channel, guys. New hair, new me. We're back in this. Let's go! Let's go! So, should competitive Yu-Gi-Oh allow for proxies? That is a question that the Stoics have pondered since time immemorial.
Draw your last pathetic card so I can end this, Yugi.
My grandpa's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba, but it does contain the unstoppable
Dueling Wave. So glad to see all your guys' beautiful faces. Before we get into the weeds of this video, I just want to bring up our sponsor real quick. Absolutely nobody. But we do have a Discord to shout out. So it's a growing, cool, small community. If you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh, you want it to be interactive, you want it to be fun, then come join us. We'd love to have you. We have our own Discord ban list where a committee of people vote and figure out what are the necessary hits to make the game balance. And we've run tournaments, and the games have been awesome, amazing. We even have polls available in the Discord where you can vote. Yes, you can decide where cards go on the ban list. Certain cards, not all of them, but certain cards that are really just kind of a dilemma and a puzzle for the committee. So if you like that, you want to try it out, you want to go join us, and you want to join this community, have a good time with us, go into the description down below and follow that link. And we can't wait to see you. Can't wait to hear you. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. Yu-Gi-Oh is expensive. How expensive is it, Wave? It depends. How many kidneys do you have for sale? With the release of Infinite Forbidden last month and Age of Overlord the end of last year, we've seen the price point of this game just go up and up and up through the roof. On top of that, in the next set, the Rage of the Abyss or whatever, we get good old Max 3, which is sure to be a $150 card. So with that being said, should Konami allow for proxies in competitive tournaments in some capacity? Trading card games like Magic the Gathering allow for proxies to a certain extent. It's not exactly like you've heard. Some people have said like, oh, you can use proxies or whatever. No, it's not. I've looked up the rules. They're kind of strict with it. You can't use it in every single capacity, but at times, for example, if your card is excessively damaged in a tournament, a head judge can issue a proxy, and then you can use it during that tournament. They also allow for, in more minor tournaments, allow for the use of proxies. Kind of, I guess, the equivalent of like locals, maybe. You also are allowed to use proxies if you have a card that's, one of the OG, like vintage format cards, that's the Power 9 or whatever. They're worth like $24,000 altogether, right? So there's tens and tens of thousands of dollars for these cards. You're not going to run them in a vintage deck. So what you do is you proxy these cards and you play the proxies instead, even if you do own the actual card, because why would you risk thousands of dollars for it to be creased or bent or whatever with some, with your opponent cutting or whatnot. Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't allow the use of proxies in this manner whatsoever. You can use them maybe at your kitchen table, like me and my friends use proxies to test different archetypes, test different cards that we don't want to buy, or like if you want to have multiples of a certain card, like you're not going to buy, if you want to have like 5 decks put together and 3 of those decks use thrusts, you're not going to spend, when thrust was at its peak of like 60, 70, well actually it was like $100, right? So let's say thrust was at its peak of $100, right? We go, are you going to spend $900 so 3 of your decks have 3 thrusts each? Like, no, you're not, right? So you're going to proxy in some capacity unless you want to keep moving cards over, which is a freaking hassle. But cards like Fiendsmith Engraver, Triple Tactics Thrust, the aforementioned, SP Little Knight, Horus Engine, Diabellstar Engine, etc., all debuted with prices that were in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars for these engines and these cards. If you picked up these cards at their peak, when everyone saw that they would be good, such as like the Diabellstar Engine and the Snake Eyes stuff and whatnot, you were shelling out $1,000 for that fire deck. On top of that, you have at least one SP Little Knight in there, which is another $100-something bucks. And then now you're running that same deck still, where Konami releases the Fiendsmith Engine, and guess what? That's another $400 to $500 in new cards, new engine that you need to be able to compete at the highest levels. Since Konami refuses to give us a ban list, this might age like milk because Konami might drop the ban list today, but still whatever, right? Now I ask the question that puzzles all of us. Why can't we use proxies in tournament play? We're allowed to use foreign cards as long as you bring a translation on a piece of paper so your opponent can have that as a resource. If I have a proxy that is indistinguishable physically from a card that I'm trying to run, from a real Yu-Gi-Oh card, why would I not be allowed to use it? Konami as a company refuses to use the OCG model of card printing to give us multiple rarities, so we have multiple chances at getting a good card, right? If you, like SP Little Knight, I believe was a super rare. You could get it for $15. That's a lot more doable, kind of like Bestial Magnum was for us. That's a lot more doable than to go, hey, let's shell out $100 per deck for the SP Little Knights, right? What if I don't feel like moving my SP Little Knight every single tournament? It's like double sleeved. I know I'm kind of complaining about like minor things, but dude, like you take the one sleeve off, take the second sleeve off, put it back, right? Then you're like, okay, well, what if I have to move like 10, 15 cards over every single time? Like, you're probably still going to do it. I'm saying give us the option. What is our other alternative if we don't allow for proxies? If you're not going to change the ratios and the way you print cards, then what is it? We have no other option than to spend hundreds and hundreds, maybe $1,000 every 2 to 3 months. What's our other option? Now, when we look at the pricing, right? Konami being so strict about proxies, that means that the pricing has to be amazing, right? These prizes are well worth it. So when you spend $1,000, $1,500 on a deck, you are giving yourself the best odds to win these amazing prizes that make it all worth it. Fat chance, dude. It's literally cheeks. There's no light at the end of the rainbow. Ultimately, the reward is what? At the regional level, it's a mat and a deck box. At the local level, it's 2-3 packs if you do well enough. At the YCS level, the biggest tournaments of the year, there's like a handful of them. In Europe, they don't even exist. You get a Nintendo Switch, insert meme here, and a vanilla Another Verse Buttonia. Unlike Magic the Gathering tourneys or other card game tourneys where the ultimate gold at the end of the rainbow is $50K, in our game, it's mostly bragging rights. You play for the love of the game. And so if that's the case, we're playing for bragging rights, who's the best player, why don't we allow for proxies? This is a game of who's the best player, not who's the richest player. I also say this as someone that has a family, a mortgage, a good job, and does YouTube for fun. I can afford all these cards, but I don't want to buy them. Why would you? Why would anyone with a brain buy these cards? No offense to anyone that's bought them, but I think you're making a mistake in life. There's nothing that makes it worth it unless your whole life revolves around Yu-Gi-Oh, unfortunately. So you get the feel-good dopamine of winning with the most OP deck, right? You get into this weird spot where you don't want to invest in this game because it's not really an investment. It's merely throwing money away so that you don't lose to tryhards at locals, which is my theory on why people even buy these cards in the first place. Because the moment one guy buys them, then the next guy buys them, then the next guy buys them, all of a sudden, for absolutely no reason other than bragging rights at locals, people are running the most tier 0 meta deck. But make it make sense, bro. Which then results, this type of style results in players feeling alienated because ultimately you're left feeling like, damn dude, I only lost because my opponent is financially irresponsible and doesn't care about paying rent or buying a new shirt where his collar is literally like wavy because he hasn't bought a new 4-pack of Hanes from Walmart in like 3 years. He spent all his money on a $1,500 deck that isn't worth it and will lose all its value in 3 to 6 months anyway. Case in point, Snake Eyes right now. How much is Diabellstar? How much was it? How much is Wanted? How much was it in its peak? 100 versus what? What's Wanted now? $10? I'll put it up on screen. It's ridiculous. It's the biggest waste of money, biggest throwaway of money that you could possibly do in your life. If you're throwing away money on expensive Yu-Gi-Oh cards, dude, you got to find another avenue for your money. Invest. There's stocks. There's crypto. There's so many different ways. Do not throw your money away. $1,500 for a deck that's worth. Fiendsmith's the only thing carrying it. Even Fiendsmith is losing its value ultimately on the market. What are we doing at this point? This is ridiculous. Now rewind back to the original point of the video. If we allow for proxies and tourneys, then we open the game up to more people. We would have less complaints about insert card here. Would we hate Snake Eyes or Yubel or Fiendsmith if we all could play it? Probably to some extent, of course, because Yu-Gi-Oh players will complain about the sky being blue. But overall, the complaints would go down. My prime example of this is Pot of Prosperity. Prosperity is just as broken as it ever was. And in fact, it's probably getting more broken by the day because of all the abundance of one-card combos, right? Since Prosperity can just find you the 1-card combo, you just look 6 more cards in your deck, you can find, like, the card's going to get only more and more broken. The card absolutely deserves to be banned or limited. Yet the calls for Prospe on ban list discussions are almost none to be banned or limited. Why? Because it's not used much in Snake Eyes. But overall, another bigger point is that the average player can now afford a $5 Prosperity since the Rarity Collection came out. And all of a sudden, the problems just disappeared overnight. All of a sudden, the same people that were calling for the bans and limits are saying, well, this helps boost old decks, or it's fine for now. Just rewind a few months. It was ban it, limit, whatever. Proxies would also help with this issue. We would finally have all the staples that we need in all the numbers that we need for every deck that we want to run. Because, hey, Konami, we like a lot of the decks you build other than the top stuff. Like I said in my last video, Melodious, Branded, all these different decks, right? We're going to pick up these archetypes. We're going to buy sets. And if we don't have to go, man, I have to pull this secret rare staple card that's $100 or else this set doesn't make it, like it's not worth it. Like, no one's going to buy your sets, but if we don't have to, if we can just go, hey, I'll just print whatever else I need. Cool, we'll buy a box and then print whatever else we need. Like, that would make so much more sense as opposed to, well, why would I buy a box when I'm not going to pull what I need, right? Like, you're not going to do it. And then finally, when Konami reprints these cards 3 years down the road, we would still pick it up because contrary to popular belief, even players that proxy, they want the real thing. They just don't want to spend $1 million on it. Right? So if they go, hey, here's this new reprint of Thrust and it's $4 or $5 in the new rarity collection. Cool. I'm picking up probably 10. That's what I do because I like playing multiple decks. But one last point before we wrap up, and I really appreciate you guys staying with me all this way. I recently watched Jesse Cotton's videos where he takes like an old garbage deck and just makes it into like a meta deck or like tries to compete with the meta at his locals. He's taking like Exodia, Crystal Bees, other random crap, right? And what he does is he mixes Fiendsmith into it. Now imagine you're a player or a person that just went to Walmart, saw the discounted Crystal Bee structure deck, which goes for like $6 a piece. You go, you know what? It's $20 for 3 decks. I remember vaguely how Yu-Gi-Oh worked. I like GX, all that stuff. Hey, I'm going to buy this, $20. Boom, I got 3 decks. And hopefully this is a pretty good deck. It looks new, right? So you start messing around with the cards at home. You're like, wow, these are good. These are way better than the original Crystal Beats are. So you're like, let me check the meta. Let me see how good, where the game's at this point. So you find Jesse Cotton's videos and you go, hey, this guy has taken it to locals and he's kicking ass with it. What do I need to do to make it like his? You start looking up the prices and wow, you need to spend $400 to make your $20 tier 7 deck just like Rogue. Who's doing that? That person then goes, oh, great, the game is pay to win. It's unfortunate. It's stupid. I'm not really going to like get into this because these can be huge money sinks and so might as well just, hey, bought the Crystal Bee structure deck, $20. We'll write that off. I have they look cool. I'm glad to have them, but I'm not gonna really play this game. You'll walk away deflated, and you'll never play. So, what do you guys think ultimately of all the points I've made in this video? Should proxies be legal in some capacity? Maybe at least in locals level, right? Maybe not regionals, but maybe at least locals, right? Most players only play locals anyway, right? Or do you not like proxies at all? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, like this video. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe because that really helps the channel. Otherwise, check this video out and I'll see ya as always.